Hi. Okay, this is about the billionth time I've done this because my computer keeps messing up. I no longer have an audience. And, okay, here I go. So, mandated recycling. How do you feel knowing that your grandchildren may not have the natural resources that we have today? Have you ever seen the movie Wall-E? Well, if you have, you can kind of see the direction that we're headed in. It's an exaggeration, but I can definitely see us headed in that direction if people don't do something. So, while there are many things that people can do to help protect our Earth, recycling is a simple thing that can be done. And I believe that it will make a huge impact if people do it properly. So, um, mandated recycling would be valuable to our country and our environment. It would prevent deforestation, relieve land burden, and it would also preserve our natural resources. Um, So according to the United States Environmental Protection Agency, recycling is the process of collecting and processing materials that would otherwise be thrown away as trash and turning them into new products. So you may ask yourself, what does this have to do with me? Why should I even care? Well, you know, every little contribution, no matter how small, makes an impact eventually. Um, and recycling can benefit us in many ways. Like I said, it can prevent deforestation, it protects the environment, it saves our usage on oil, um, reduces our greenhouse gas emissions, which would help with global warming. And it also reduces our landfill use. You know, when things are sent to the landfill, sometimes it can take a couple hundred of years for them to biodegrade. So, you know, unfortunately, we're just compacting all this trash on our earth. Um, when you choose to recycle, you know, it makes you a good steward of your earth's resources. When recycling comes into play, there's also possible employment prospects. Um, According to Recycling Benefits the Many, recycling creates 4 jobs for every 1 job that's created in the waste management and disposal industries. They also stated that recycling creates 1.1 million U.S. jobs and $236 billion in gross annual sales and $37 billion in annual payrolls. So that's an awesome thing. Recycling can also help the community budget and the federal budget. According to Recycling Benefits the Many, well-run recycling programs cost less to operate than waste collection, landfilling, and incineration. Recycling also lowers your carbon footprint, and that feels good. And it lowers the amount of carbon dioxide that's released into the air. Recycling also helps save oil by reducing the oil usage used to manufacture new products. According to My Zero Waste, this is because recycling uses less energy. Aluminum, for example, uses 95% less energy when recycled than when manufactured new. So what are the negatives to recycling? Well, if the recycling plant is improperly managed, the workers can be put at risk they're at risk from hazardous debris, chemicals, improper sorting, and the risk of being exposed to dangerous items if they're not trained properly. Recycling is also a lot more complicated than it seems, and it's not as easy as landfill usage. It's been said that recycling can end up costing the consumer more than throwing out the trash, especially if they're recycling the wrong things. So now that we know a little bit about what recycling is and the pros and cons, I'll move on to why mandation is so desperately needed in our country. In a recent poll done with an ISU communications class, the most common reason for not recycling was inconvenience. The second most common reason was that they felt that it wasn't making an impact. So when I asked the students who did recycle why they recycled, most of them answered because their community had set up a recycling program. making it more convenient. um, so why aren't people around our country recycling? It all boils down to inconvenience. In a thesis written by Six, there was a quote by Jurin and Fortner. This quote stated that many people do not practice pro-environmental behaviors despite effortlessly stating their opinions, their attitudes, and being aware of environmental concerns and crises. So, as you can see, we need a little bit of enforcement. There's a lot of places that have successfully implemented recycling mandations. Germany and Sweden are two countries that have done a very good job of it. We also have places around our own country that have done it. Portland, for example, San Francisco, New Jersey has a great recycling program, and Seattle. I'm going to talk about Seattle's because I'm very familiar with it. I lived there for years, and I was part of the implementation of it and the process, so I kind of know how it goes. Seattle's recycling ordinance was started in 2006. And according to Everson, within a couple of months of Seattle's mandatory recycling ordinance, 90% of businesses and apartment complexes were complying. Seattle successfully implemented their program through the use of education. They did it slowly. They made sure that everyone knew that there was going to be fines. And they made sure that their recycling centers were run properly. So what were the costs associated with this program? Well, they were great at first, but Seattle recouped all their money, and for the consumers there was no added cost. The city of Seattle provided all the bins and the pickup and everything. So, and actually the residents of Seattle had a decreased garbage bill, so that was cool too. According to Seattle.gov, the city had a significant startup cost, but they expect to save the businesses and the residents as much as $2 million per year. While there were some people who were against the ban at first, many have said that 60% of the residents of Seattle comply and say that they prefer the recycling ordinance. And I know that I did once it got up and running. It takes time to get used to, but once you get used to it, it's like second nature. And the residents of Seattle also feel good about helping the environment. So in cities that are not mandated, some have programs that offer bins and recycling centers and some don't. I'm going to use Chicago for an example. In Chicago, they promote recycling and they provide some things, but it's of little use, as it is estimated that after these programs were put in place, Chicago still only recycles 5 to 10% of their recyclables, and that's from the Awful Truth. So the impact in Seattle was amazing. From 2007 to 2011, Seattle reduced their landfill waste by 44%, and they have a goal to reduce it further to 77%, according to Conlon. So as you can see, there are cities that are successfully mandated, and the pros far outweigh the cons, but you may be asking yourself how. This seems so complicated, and it seems like an infringement on my rights. How is this going to work? Well, years ago there was a seatbelt law put into place, and this was because they found that driving without a seatbelt and getting into wrecks was more dangerous than driving with a seatbelt. And although people were educated, they still weren't doing it. So the government felt that they had to protect us and put this law into place. According to David Biello in Scientific American, the state of the planet is grim. So now is the time to do something about it, and every little thing helps. We obviously cannot be entrusted, so we need to push in the right direction, and that's where the government mandation comes into play. We're naturally inclined to do things the easy way, and with the government supporting us and giving us everything that we need, it'll make it a lot easier on us to recycle. The cost of the government mandation would vary, but we could probably get that money from grants and federal funds, donations and that kind of thing. I believe that's how the other places have gotten it up and running. So people may complain that this would violate their rights and they don't like to be told what to do. There's still a big debate over this whole seatbelt law thing, but you know, it would be a lot more convenient for us. The initial startup costs will be costly, but I think that once we recoup that money, it'll be okay, and it'll actually save us money in the long run. So in order for our government to establish a mandatory recycling program, there has to be a call to action from the people like us. We need to educate ourselves thoroughly and stand up for our earth. While it's ideal for us to consume less, that's not happening either, so we may as well recycle what we do consume. The government could put a recycling coordinator into play, and each community or state could have their own recycling coordinator as well. Our planet's at stake, and something must be done. So, you know, as you can see, a recycling mandate, they've had huge impacts in some of our local communities as well as in other countries. While they're negatives or perceived negatives, the benefits far outweigh those negatives. The expenses can be recouped, and that can actually save us money in the long run, and inconvenience would no longer be a factor. So please contact your legislator today and get this into action. And I have a couple websites that you can visit to get started, to educate yourself a little bit and to find out how to contact your legislator. So there you go. Thank you very much.